The waitress had just refilled her coffee when Emma realized she was crying into her scrambled eggs at 7 in the morning on a Tuesday. She wiped her eyes quickly, embarrassed, hoping no one had noticed. The diner was nearly empty at this hour, just a few early risers scattered across the vinyl booths. She had chosen the corner seat deliberately, the one by the window that overlooked the parking lot and the highway beyond. It was the same booth where she used to sit with her father every Sunday morning for 15 years. "Are you all right?" The voice came from her left, and Emma turned to find a man standing a respectful distance away, concern etched across his features. He was tall, probably in his early 30s, with dark hair that looked like he had run his fingers through it a few times too many. He wore jeans and a simple gray shirt, and something about his expression made her feel like he genuinely cared about the answer. "I'm fine," Emma said automatically, then laughed at herself because clearly she was not fine if she was crying into her breakfast. "Sorry, I'm not usually this much of a mess in public." The man gestured to the empty seat across from her. "Mind if I sit? You look like you could use some company, or I can leave you alone if you prefer. I just saw you from over there and thought maybe talking might help." Emma surprised herself by nodding. Maybe it was because he was a stranger, someone who did not know her story, someone who would not look at her with that pitying expression everyone back home wore whenever they saw her. Or maybe it was because this diner, sitting in this specific booth, made her feel closer to her dad, and her dad had always told her that kindness from strangers was the universe reminding you that you were not alone. He slid into the booth across from her, and the waitress appeared immediately with coffee for him. He thanked her with a smile that seemed warm and genuine. "I'm Marcus," he said, wrapping his hands around the mug. "Emma." She took a shaky breath. "And I promise I'm not having a breakdown. Well, not a major one anyway." "Breakfast crying is totally acceptable," Marcus said. "I once cried into a stack of pancakes at 3 in the morning because I was watching a documentary about elephants on my phone." Emma laughed, a real laugh that surprised her. "Elephants? They're very emotional creatures. The documentary was devastating." He took a sip of his coffee, his eyes never leaving hers. "But I'm guessing your tears have a better reason than mine did." Emma looked down at her eggs, now cold. "I used to come here with my dad," she said quietly. The words came easier than she expected. "Every Sunday morning for as long as I can remember. He passed away 3 months ago, and this is the first time I've been back since." The understanding that crossed Marcus's face was not pity, which Emma appreciated more than she could say. "That's a good reason for tears," he said simply. "Was this your special place together?" "Yeah." Emma found herself smiling despite the ache in her chest. He would always order the same thing: 2 eggs over easy, bacon crispy, wheat toast with strawberry jam. And he would tell me these ridiculous stories about his week. Half of them were probably made up just to make me laugh, but I loved every single one. "What did you order?" Marcus asked. "Chocolate chip pancakes when I was little. Then I graduated to the scrambled eggs and hash browns when I decided I was too grown up for pancakes." She laughed. "Dad always said I would come back to the pancakes eventually. He said everyone does." "Smart man," Marcus said. "What did he do, your dad?" "He was a music teacher at the elementary school. Piano, mostly, but he could play just about anything." Emma's voice softened. "He had this way of making every kid feel like they could be the next Mozart if they just practiced enough. He believed in people." They talked for an hour, maybe more. Marcus listened in a way that made Emma feel heard, really heard for the first time since her father's funeral. He asked questions that showed he was genuinely interested, not just being polite. He told her about his own father, who lived across the country and who he did not see nearly enough. He made her laugh with a story about accidentally ordering 50 pizzas instead of 5 for a company event, because he was distracted during the phone call. "What kind of company?" Emma asked. "Commercial real estate development," Marcus said, and something flickered across his face, quick enough that Emma almost missed it. "Pretty boring stuff, honestly. Buildings and contracts and meetings that could have been emails." "Doesn't sound boring," Emma said. "Sounds like you're building things, creating spaces for people." Marcus looked at her with an expression she could not quite read. "I never thought about it that way. Most people just hear real estate and their eyes glaze over." The waitress came by to warm up their coffee, and Emma realized the diner had filled up around them. The breakfast rush was in full swing, and she had been so absorbed in conversation that she had not even noticed. "I should probably let you get on with your day," Emma said reluctantly. "You didn't sign up to be my impromptu therapist when you woke up this morning." "I'm glad I sat down," Marcus said, and he meant it. She could tell. "Can I ask you something, though? Are you going to come back here again?" Emma looked around the diner, at the worn booths and the checkered floor and the menu board that had not changed in 20 years. "I don't know. It hurts, being here without him." "Maybe that means you should come back," Marcus said gently. "Maybe you could start a new tradition, not to replace the old one but to honor it." Something about the way he said it made Emma's throat tight. "Maybe." Marcus pulled out his phone. "Can I give you my number? Not in a weird way, I promise. Just in a if you ever want to talk or need someone to sit across from you while you cry into your eggs kind of way." Emma found herself smiling as she handed him her phone. They exchanged numbers, and when Marcus stood to leave, he paused. "For what it's worth, Emma, your dad sounds like he was an amazing person, and I think he'd be proud of you for coming here today." After he left, Emma sat in the booth for another 10 minutes, staring at his contact information in her phone. Marcus Chen. She had not expected to meet someone today, had not expected to feel even a tiny bit lighter than when she had walked in. But she did. She paid her bill and left a generous tip for the waitress who had kept their coffee full without interrupting their conversation. As she walked to her car, Emma made a decision. She would come back next Sunday. Maybe not to the same booth, maybe not at the same time, but she would come back. She did not expect to see Marcus again. But the following Sunday, when she pushed through the diner doors at 9 in the morning instead of 7, there he was, sitting in the same booth, 2 cups of coffee already on the table. "You came back," Emma said, surprised. Marcus looked up and smiled, and it was the kind of smile that made her heart do a small flip. "So did you. How did you know I'd be here?" "I didn't," he admitted. "But I hoped. And I figured even if you didn't show, the coffee here is good enough to make the drive worth it." Emma slid into the booth across from him, and it felt natural, like they had been doing this for years instead of having met just once before. "Where did you drive from?" "About 40 minutes north," Marcus said. "I was actually on a work trip last week when I stopped here. I don't usually come to this area." "And you drove 40 minutes on a Sunday morning on the chance I might show up?" Emma tried to keep her voice light, but inside, her heart was racing. "I'm an optimist," Marcus said. "Plus, I really wanted to see if you took your dad's advice and ordered the chocolate chip pancakes." Emma laughed and picked up the menu even though she had it memorized. "Maybe I will." She did order the pancakes, and they were exactly as good as she remembered from childhood. Marcus got the eggs over easy with bacon, and when Emma raised an eyebrow, he shrugged. You made it sound good when you talked about your dad's order. Thought I'd try it. They fell into easy conversation again, the kind where hours passed like minutes. Marcus told her about growing up in Seattle, about his mother who was a librarian and his father who worked in aerospace engineering. Emma talked about her job as a physical therapist at a rehabilitation center, how she loved helping people regain their strength and independence after injuries or surgeries. "That's incredible," Marcus said. "You're literally helping people get their lives back." "It's rewarding," Emma agreed. "Challenging, too. Some days are harder than others, especially when patients don't make the progress they hoped for. But when someone walks out of our facility who came in on a stretcher, that makes everything worth it." "How long have you been doing it?" 5 years. I actually started because of my dad." Emma smiled at the memory. "He had a minor stroke when I was in college. Nothing too serious. But he needed physical therapy to regain full mobility in his left hand. Watching his therapist work with him, seeing how much of a difference she made, it inspired me to change my major." "From what?" "Business administration. I had this idea that I needed to do something practical and corporate to be successful. My dad never pushed me toward it. He always said I should follow my heart, but I was so focused on financial stability that I ignored him." Emma wrapped her hands around her coffee mug. "The stroke was a wake-up call. Life's too short to spend it doing something that doesn't feed your soul, you know." Marcus nodded, his expression thoughtful. "I do know. Sometimes I wonder if I'm doing that, feeding my soul, or just going through the motions because it's what's expected." "With the real estate development?" "Yeah." Marcus leaned back against the booth. "Don't get me wrong, I'm good at it, and there's satisfaction in seeing a project come together. But sometimes I wonder if I'm building what I want to build, or what makes the most business sense." They talked until the lunch rush started, and once again, Emma was amazed at how comfortable she felt with this man she barely knew. When they finally left the diner, Marcus walked her to her car. "Same time next week?" he asked, and there was a hopeful quality to his voice that made Emma's stomach flutter. "I'd like that," she said. It became their tradition. Every Sunday at 9 in the morning, Emma and Marcus met at the diner. They took turns ordering different things from the menu, rating them and comparing notes. They talked about everything: movies and books and childhood memories and dreams for the future. Marcus told her about his passion for architecture, how he loved the creative side of development more than the business side. Emma shared stories about her patients, always careful to protect their privacy, but conveying the human moments that made her job meaningful. The 4th week, Marcus brought a small succulent plant in a ceramic pot. "What's this?" Emma asked, delighted. "I was at a nursery yesterday and saw this. It reminded me of you." He seemed almost embarrassed. "Succulents are resilient. They thrive even in tough conditions. And this one's called a string of pearls. I thought it was pretty." Emma took the pot carefully, touched by the gesture. "Thank you, Marcus. I love it." "I wasn't sure if it was weird bringing you a plant," he admitted. "But I saw it and thought of you, and I figured that was worth the risk of being weird." "It's not weird," Emma assured him. "It's really sweet." Something shifted between them that day. The conversations took on a different quality, more personal, more intimate. Marcus's hand would brush against hers when they reached for the sugar at the same time. Their knees would touch under the table, and neither of them would move away. Emma found herself thinking about him during the week, looking forward to Sunday mornings in a way that made her feel like a teenager with a crush. On the 6th week, Emma arrived to find Marcus looking distracted, his usual easy smile strained. "Everything okay?" she asked as she slid into the booth. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, that gesture she had come to recognize as his tell when he was stressed. "Work stuff. We're in the middle of a big negotiation for a property downtown and it's getting complicated. I shouldn't bore you with it." "You're not boring me," Emma said. "Talk to me. What's going on?" Marcus sighed. "There's this historic building. Used to be a theater back in the 1920s. It's been abandoned for years, and the city wants someone to restore it and bring it back to life. My company wants to buy it, but we're competing against another developer who wants to tear it down and put up luxury condos." "That would be a shame," Emma said. "Historic buildings have so much character." "That's what I think," Marcus said, his eyes lighting up the way they did when he talked about something he was passionate about. "I've been working on a proposal to restore it as a performing arts center. Keep the original architecture, modernize the infrastructure. It would be a community space, not just another profit-driven project." "That sounds amazing," Emma said. "Why the stress?" "Because my partners think I'm being too idealistic. The condo project would be more profitable, faster return on investment. They're worried I'm letting sentiment cloud my business judgment." Marcus looked frustrated. "And maybe they're right. Maybe I am being impractical." Emma reached across the table and put her hand over his. It was the first time they had held hands, and the contact sent electricity through her. "Your partners are wrong. The world needs more people who choose meaning over profit, and that theater sounds like it would be an incredible gift to the community." Marcus turned his hand over so their palms were touching, his fingers intertwining with hers. "Thank you for saying that." They sat like that for a moment, hands clasped, something unspoken passing between them. The waitress came by, and they reluctantly separated to order, but the air felt different now, charged with possibility. After breakfast, Marcus walked Emma to her car as usual, but this time he did not let go of her hand. "Emma," he said, his voice serious, "I need to tell you something." Her heart raced. "Okay." "These Sunday mornings have become the best part of my week. More than that, you've become the best part of my week." He stepped closer. "I know we met under unusual circumstances, and maybe this is moving fast, but I can't stop thinking about you. Would you want to have dinner with me? Like a real date, not just breakfast at a diner." Emma felt like she was glowing from the inside out. "I would love that." Marcus's smile was brilliant. Yeah, Emma confirmed, squeezing his hand. "I've been hoping you'd ask." "I was nervous," Marcus admitted. "I didn't want to mess up what we have. These mornings mean everything to me." "They mean everything to me too," Emma said. "But I'd really like to see what else we could have together." Their first official date was that Wednesday. Marcus picked her up at 7, and when Emma opened the door, his expression made her glad she had spent an hour deciding on the right dress. "You look beautiful," he said, handing her a bouquet of wildflowers. "Thank you," Emma said, breathing in their sweet scent. "These are gorgeous. Let me put them in water." Marcus waited in her living room, and Emma was suddenly conscious of what her apartment said about her. The second-hand furniture she had refinished herself, the walls covered in photographs and artwork from local craft fairs, the overstuffed bookshelf taking up an entire wall. It was cozy and eclectic, very much her, and she hoped he liked it. When she came back from the kitchen, Marcus was looking at her bookshelf with interest. "You have a good collection here. I see we have similar taste in mystery novels." "I'm a sucker for a good detective story," Emma admitted. "The more impossible the crime seems, the better." Dinner was at a small Italian restaurant downtown, the kind of place with red checkered tablecloths and candles in wine bottles. They ordered too much food and shared everything, feeding each other bites of pasta and laughing when Marcus got marinara sauce on his chin. "Tell me something I don't know about you yet," Marcus said, twirling spaghetti around his fork. Emma thought for a moment. "I'm terrified of birds," Marcus laughed. "Birds, really?" "It's completely irrational, I know. But when I was 6, a pigeon flew into my head at the park and I've never recovered from the trauma." Emma grinned at how ridiculous it sounded. "Your turn." "Tell me something I don't know." Marcus's expression became more serious. "I almost became a teacher instead of going into real estate." "Really? What stopped you?" "Family pressure, mostly. My father had built this successful company, and there was this expectation that I'd take over someday, continue the legacy." Marcus set down his fork. "I love my dad, and I'm grateful for everything he built. But sometimes I wonder what my life would have been like if I had followed my own path instead of the one laid out for me." "It's not too late," Emma said gently. "You could still teach. Maybe not full-time, but you could volunteer, mentor students interested in architecture." Marcus looked at her with something like wonder. "You know what? You're right. I never thought about it that way, but you're absolutely right." After dinner, they walked through the downtown area, past closed shops and under streetlights, talking and laughing. Marcus took her hand again, and it felt natural, like they had been doing this for years. "Can I tell you something?" Emma said as they walked. "That first morning at the diner after my dad died, I was in such a dark place. I didn't know if I'd ever feel normal again. But then you sat down and you listened, and you made me laugh. You reminded me that life could still have light in it." Marcus stopped walking and turned to face her, his hands coming up to cup her face gently. "Can I kiss you? Please," Emma whispered. The kiss was soft and sweet and perfect, standing under a streetlight in the middle of downtown while the world moved around them. When they pulled apart, Emma was smiling so wide her cheeks hurt. "I've wanted to do that since the second Sunday," Marcus admitted. "Only the second," Emma teased. "I've wanted to do that since the first." They saw each other 3 times that week, in addition to their Sunday morning tradition. Marcus came to watch Emma's recreational volleyball league play on Thursday night, cheering embarrassingly loud from the sidelines. Emma met Marcus for lunch near his office on Friday, and he showed her the architectural plans for the theater restoration project he was so passionate about. "This is incredible, Marcus," Emma said, studying the detailed drawings. "You're going to restore the original ceiling. We're going to try. It's been damaged over the years, but we found photographs from the 1920s that show what it originally looked like. We want to get it as close to authentic as possible while still meeting modern building codes." His enthusiasm was infectious. "And look here, this is going to be a community classroom space where local artists can teach workshops. You're really doing this, even though your partners were hesitant," Marcus nodded. "We got the property. The final contracts were signed yesterday. It's going to be a huge project, probably 2 years of work, but we're going to make it happen." Emma threw her arms around him, proud and happy. "That's amazing. Congratulations." "I couldn't have done it without you," Marcus said, hugging her back. "Your encouragement gave me the confidence to fight for what I believed in." On their 3-week anniversary of officially dating, Marcus took Emma to a concert at an outdoor pavilion. They spread a blanket on the lawn, shared wine from a thermos, and listened to a local orchestra play under the stars. "My dad would have loved this," Emma said, leaning against Marcus's shoulder. "He always said live music was food for the soul." "Tell me more about him," Marcus said. What's your favorite memory? Emma smiled, looking up at the stars. When I was 12, I had this horrible day at school. Some girls were being mean, the way middle school girls can be, and I came home crying. Dad sat me down at the piano, even though I had no idea how to play, and he taught me this simple melody. Just a few notes, nothing complicated. He said music was magic because it could change your mood, change your whole day if you let it. We sat there for an hour, just playing those same few notes over and over, and by the end I was laughing instead of crying. He sounds like he was a wonderful father, Marcus said softly. He was. I miss him every day. Emma turned to look at Marcus, but I think he'd really like you. I hope so. I'm kind of crazy about his daughter. They kissed as the orchestra played, and Emma felt happy in a way she had not thought possible 3 months ago, when she had been crying into her eggs at the diner. 2 months into their relationship, Emma finally met Marcus's family. His mother, Helen, was warm and welcoming, immediately pulling Emma into a hug when they arrived at the family home for Sunday dinner. "I've heard so much about you," Helen said. "Marcus talks about you constantly." "Mom," Marcus said, embarrassed, but he was smiling. His father, Robert, was more reserved, shaking Emma's hand formally before leading them into the dining room. The house was beautiful, large and well-appointed, and Emma began to understand that Marcus's family had more money than she had realized. Over dinner, Robert asked about Emma's work, and she told him about the rehabilitation center and her patients. She could tell he was evaluating her, trying to figure out if she was good enough for his son. "Physical therapy must be steady work," Robert said. "Good benefits, stable income." "Dad," Marcus said, a warning in his voice. "I'm just making conversation," Robert said mildly. Helen smoothly changed the subject, asking Emma about her family. Emma talked about her father, about his music teaching and their Sunday morning tradition at the diner. She saw Helen's expression soften with sympathy. "That's how you and Marcus met, isn't it?" "At that diner?" "Yes," Emma said. "Best scrambled eggs of my life." After dinner, Marcus showed Emma around the house, and when they got to his childhood bedroom, Emma laughed at the posters of rock bands and the trophies from high school soccer. "Look at you, teenage rebel," she teased. "My parents wanted me to play violin like some of my cousins. I insisted on soccer as a form of rebellion," Marcus said. "Very tame as far as teenage rebellion goes. Did you ever tell them you wanted to be a teacher instead of going into the family business?" Marcus's smile faded. "I tried once. Dad gave me this speech about legacy and responsibility, and how I had opportunities that most people could never dream of. He made it clear that choosing anything else would be a disappointment." "That's not fair to you," Emma said. "It's complicated," Marcus said. "He's not a bad person. He just has very specific ideas about success and what my life should look like." Later, as Marcus drove Emma home, she could tell something was bothering him. "Your dad doesn't like me," she said gently. "That's not true," Marcus said quickly. Then he sighed. "He's protective. And he has these ideas about who I should end up with, someone from the same social circle, someone who understands the business world." "Someone with money," Emma said bluntly. Marcus winced. "He's old-fashioned that way. But Emma, I don't care what he thinks. I care about you. I'm falling in love with you." The world seemed to stop. They were at a red light, and Marcus turned to look at her, his expression open and vulnerable. "You're falling in love with me," Emma whispered. "I am. I know it's only been a couple months, but I can't help how I feel. You don't have to say it back. I just needed you to know." Emma reached over and took his hand. "I'm falling in love with you too." I think I have been since you brought me that succulent plant. Marcus laughed, relieved and happy, and kissed her hand. Best plant purchase of my life. The next Sunday at the diner, their tradition now firmly established, Marcus seemed nervous. He kept checking his phone and his leg bounced under the table. "What's going on?" Emma asked. "You're making me anxious." Marcus took a deep breath. "There's something I need to tell you and I'm worried about how you're going to react." Emma's heart sank. "Okay, just tell me." "I haven't been completely honest with you about my work situation." Marcus looked miserable. "When I said I work in commercial real estate development, that's true. But I left out the part where my family's company is one of the largest development firms in the state. And I'm not just an employee, I'm the CEO." Emma stared at him. "You're a CEO?" "Yes, and the company is worth a lot of money. I'm not just doing well, Emma, I'm wealthy, very wealthy." He rushed on before she could respond. "I didn't tell you at first because I liked that you didn't know, that you just saw me as Marcus, not as Marcus Chen, heir to the Chen development fortune. And then as we got closer, I was afraid that if I told you, it would change things between us." Emma sat back, processing. She thought about his nice car, his expensive watch that she had noticed but not thought much about, the way he never seemed worried about money. The signs had been there, she realized, she just had not been looking. "How wealthy are we talking?" she asked. Marcus named a figure that made Emma's head spin. "You're a millionaire." "Several times over," Marcus said quietly. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner." Emma did not know what to feel, betrayed, confused. Did this change anything? She looked at the man across from her, the man who brought her succulent plants and listened to her stories about her father and fought for a historic theater to be restored, because it was the right thing to do, not the profitable thing. The money was new information, but it did not change who he fundamentally was. "Why are you telling me now?" she asked. "Because I love you," Marcus said simply. "And I can't build a future with you based on omission. You deserve to know everything about me, including the parts I'm not proud of, like hiding my wealth because I was afraid of how you'd see me." Emma reached across the table and took his hands. "I wish you had told me sooner, but I understand why you didn't. And Marcus, the money doesn't change how I feel about you. You could be broke and living in a studio apartment and I'd still be falling in love with you." Marcus's shoulders sagged with relief. "Really? Really? Though I have to admit, this explains why your father was so skeptical of me. He thinks I'm some gold digger, doesn't he?" "He's going to have to get over that," Marcus said firmly. "Because you're not going anywhere if I have anything to say about it." They talked for another hour about what this meant, about the reality of Marcus's wealth and the expectations that came with it. He told her about the pressure from his family, the constant attention from people who wanted something from him, the difficulty of knowing who genuinely cared about him versus who cared about his money. "I've dated women before who were more interested in my bank account than in me," Marcus admitted. "That's why meeting you, having you not know, it felt like this gift. You saw me for who I really am." "I still do," Emma promised. "The money is just a detail. An important detail, sure, but it's not what matters to me." Over the following weeks, Emma started to see what Marcus's life was really like. He took her to a charity gala for a children's hospital, and she saw him in a tuxedo, working the room, comfortable in a world of wealth and privilege that felt foreign to her. People sought him out, wanting his attention, his money, his influence. But through it all, Marcus kept her close, his hand always finding hers, making sure she felt included. "You're good at this," Emma said as they danced. "The social stuff." "I've had a lot of practice," Marcus said, but I'd rather be at the diner with you. We can go for late-night pancakes after this if you want, Emma offered. Marcus's smile was brilliant. Have I mentioned that I love you? Once or twice, Emma teased. But I don't mind hearing it again. Emma also got to see the work Marcus did, and she was impressed by his dedication. He brought her to the theater renovation site, and she watched him discuss architectural details with contractors, his passion evident in every word. He took her ideas seriously, even implementing one of her suggestions about making the building more accessible for people with mobility issues. You should have been an architect, Emma told him as they stood in what would become the main auditorium. Maybe in another life, Marcus said. But in this one, I get to create spaces for communities. That's not nothing. 4 months into their relationship, Emma invited Marcus to an event at the rehabilitation center where she worked. It was a celebration for patients who had completed their treatment, a chance for families to meet the therapists who had helped their loved ones. Marcus watched Emma interact with her patients, saw the genuine joy on her face when a woman she had been working with walked across the room without assistance for the first time. He saw the way people's faces lit up when they saw Emma, the way children hugged her legs and elderly patients held her hands. You're really good at what you do, Marcus said during a quiet moment. These people love you. I love them too, Emma said simply. This job, these people, they're my purpose. Watching her, Marcus realized that Emma had found something he was still searching for. That perfect alignment between passion and profession. She was exactly where she was supposed to be, doing exactly what she was supposed to do. That night, lying in bed in Emma's apartment, Marcus said, "What if I started a foundation?" Emma, who had been half asleep, opened her eyes. "What kind of foundation?" "For music education, in honor of your father." Marcus propped himself up on his elbow, ideas flowing. "We could fund music programs in schools that can't afford them, provide instruments to students who need them, offer scholarships for music therapy training." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Marcus, that's beautiful, but that would cost so much money." "I have the money. I should be using it for things that matter." He brushed a tear from her cheek. "Your dad believed in the power of music to change lives. I want to help continue that legacy." Emma kissed him, pouring all her love and gratitude into it. "You're an incredible man, Marcus Chen." They spent hours that night planning, Emma sharing stories about her father's teaching philosophy, while Marcus took notes on his phone. By the time they fell asleep, wrapped in each other's arms, they had the basic framework for what would become the David Morrison Music Foundation. The foundation became a reality over the next several months. Marcus hired a team to handle the logistics, but he and Emma were involved in every decision. They visited schools, met with music teachers, talked to students about what they needed. Emma watched Marcus come alive during these visits, saw him connect with kids in a way that reminded her of her father. "You would have made a great teacher," she told him after a particularly successful school visit, where Marcus had spent an hour talking to a shy 6th grader about architecture and design. "It's not too late," Marcus said. "Maybe when the theater renovation is done, I could teach some classes there. Community education, introduction to architecture and design, that kind of thing." "I think that's a perfect idea," Emma said. Their first Sunday at the diner after launching the foundation, Emma brought photographs of her father to show Marcus. Pictures of him at the piano, conducting school concerts surrounded by students. Marcus studied each photo carefully, treating them with reverence. "I wish I could have met him," Marcus said. "Me too," Emma said. "He would have loved you. He always said the measure of a person was in what they chose to do with their gifts. You're using your gifts to help people, Marcus. That's what Dad always tried to do. The waitress, who had been serving them every Sunday for months now, stopped by their table. "You two are my favorite customers," she said. "Every week, like clockwork. It's nice to see young people keeping traditions alive." After she left, Emma smiled at Marcus. "We've created our own tradition, haven't we? This isn't just about me and my dad anymore, it's about us." "I love our tradition," Marcus said, "though I have an idea for how we might expand it." "Oh yeah, what's that?" Marcus pulled out his phone and showed her a photo of a small house with a for sale sign in front. "This place is 2 blocks from the diner. It needs work, but it has good bones. I was thinking we could buy it, fix it up, have a place to stay when we want to be in this area." Emma stared at the photo. "Marcus, that's a big step." "I know, but Emma, I love you. I want to build a life with you. And I know this place means something to you, your history with your father. I want it to be part of our history too." He set down his phone and took her hands. "I'm not asking you to move in with me yet, though I hope we get there. I'm just saying I want to invest in our future together." Emma felt overwhelmed with emotion. "You'd buy a house just so we could be near the diner where we met?" "I'd buy 10 houses if it made you happy," Marcus said seriously, "but let's start with one." They bought the house. It was a small craftsman-style bungalow with a front porch and a backyard that was more weeds than grass. They spent weekends fixing it up together, painting walls and refinishing floors and arguing good-naturedly about whether the kitchen should be blue or green. "Green is more calming," Emma argued, paintbrush in hand. "But blue is more classic," Marcus countered. They compromised on a soft sage green that made them both happy. Emma brought vintage finds from thrift stores, while Marcus handled the structural updates and made sure everything was up to code. It was exhausting work, but Emma loved every minute of it. Working on the house together felt like building their future, one nail and paintbrush stroke at a time. 6 months after they started dating, Marcus brought Emma to meet his father at the Chen development offices. Robert Chen's office was on the top floor of a downtown high-rise, all glass and steel and impressive views. "Emma," Robert said, shaking her hand. His expression was neutral, giving nothing away. "Marcus says you've been helpful with the Music Foundation." "It's been a passion project for both of us," Emma said carefully. She was not going to let this man intimidate her. "Passion projects are fine," Robert said, "but Marcus has responsibilities to this company, to the family legacy. I hope you understand that." "Dad," Marcus said, his voice hard, "that's enough." "I'm simply stating facts," Robert said. "Emma seems like a nice girl, but you come from different worlds. These things matter." Emma stood up. "Mr. Chen, you're right that Marcus and I come from different backgrounds. I grew up in a small apartment with a single father who was a public school teacher. We didn't have much money, but we had love and music and Sunday mornings at a diner. That's the world I come from, and I'm not ashamed of it." She turned to Marcus. "I'll wait for you downstairs." After Emma left, Marcus faced his father, angrier than he had been in years. "What the hell was that?" "I'm protecting you," Robert said. "You're a wealthy man, Marcus. People will use you for your money." "Emma is not using me. She didn't even know about the money when we met. She fell in love with me, not my bank account." Marcus stood up. "And you know what, Dad? Even if she had known, it wouldn't change the fact that she's kind and caring and makes me want to be a better person. She's helped me remember why I got into this business in the first place, to build things that matter, not just to make money." "You're being naive," Robert said. "No, I'm being happy." For the first time in years, I'm genuinely happy, and if you can't support that, then we have nothing more to discuss." Marcus walked out, leaving his father sitting alone in his expensive office. He found Emma outside, leaning against his car. She had been crying, and Marcus felt his anger flare again. "I'm sorry," he said, pulling her into his arms. "He had no right to speak to you that way." "He's your father," Emma said. "He's looking out for you in his own way." "His way is wrong," Marcus said firmly. "Emma, you are the best thing in my life. My father's approval would be nice, but it's not necessary. I choose you." Emma looked up at him, her eyes red but her expression determined. "Are you sure?" "Because this isn't going to be easy, Marcus. Your father is always going to see me as the poor girl who isn't good enough for his son." "Then he's an idiot," Marcus said. "Because you're more than good enough. You're everything." That Sunday at the diner, they were quieter than usual. The confrontation with Robert had shaken them both, forcing them to confront the reality of their different backgrounds. "My dad never would have judged someone based on their bank account," Emma said, pushing her pancakes around her plate. "He believed everyone had equal worth." "My father built his entire life around the idea that worth is measured in wealth and status," Marcus said. "We're fundamentally different people with different values. Does that bother you?" "That we come from such different worlds." Marcus reached across the table and took her hand. "The only thing that bothers me is the idea of a world without you in it. Everything else is just logistics." Emma squeezed his hand. "I love you, and I'm not going to let your father's disapproval chase me away. If you're willing to deal with the complications, so am I." "It's you and me," Marcus said. "That's all that matters." The theater renovation was progressing beautifully. Marcus brought Emma to see it one evening after they had finished painting the kitchen in their little house near the diner. The old building was being transformed, with scaffolding everywhere and the sound of construction filling the air. "Look at this," Marcus said, his face glowing with pride. He led her to the main auditorium where the ceiling was being restored. "We found artisans who specialize in this kind of work. They're recreating the original design based on those old photographs." Emma looked up at the ornate ceiling, at the careful work being done to bring it back to its former glory. "This is going to be amazing, Marcus." "The grand opening is scheduled for next spring," Marcus said. "I want you there with me. I want everyone to know that you inspired this project, that you helped me remember why this kind of work matters." "I didn't do anything," Emma protested. "You did everything," Marcus corrected. "You reminded me that buildings should serve communities, not just generate profit. You helped me find my purpose again." They walked through the space together, Marcus pointing out various features and explaining the restoration process. His passion was infectious, and Emma found herself falling even more in love with this man, who could have spent his wealth on anything, but chose to invest it in preserving history and creating community spaces. As they left the theater, Emma said, "When this opens, we should host a special event for music students. Maybe through the foundation, we could bring kids here for concerts and workshops." Marcus stopped walking and looked at her with such love that it took her breath away. "That's perfect. We'll make it happen." 8 months into their relationship, Emma's mother, who lived in Arizona, and who Emma had a complicated relationship with, came to visit. Janet Morrison had left when Emma was 10, overwhelmed by the responsibilities of motherhood and marriage. She had tried to maintain a relationship with Emma over the years, but the distance and the hurt had made it difficult. Emma was nervous about introducing Marcus to her mother, worried about what Janet might think or say. They met for lunch at a restaurant downtown, Neutral territory. "So you're the millionaire boyfriend I've heard about," Janet said after introductions were made. She had always been blunt. "Mom," Emma said, mortified. "It's all right," Marcus said easily. "Yes, ma'am. I'm fortunate to have done well in business. And you're serious about my daughter. This isn't just some fling." Emma wanted to sink through the floor, but Marcus handled it with grace. "I'm very serious about Emma. I love her, and I hope to spend the rest of my life with her if she'll have me." Janet studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Good. Emma deserves someone who will stick around." It was a dig at Janet's own leaving, and the table fell silent. Emma felt old anger rise up, all the years of feeling abandoned flooding back. "I'm not staying long," Janet said, breaking the tension. "I just wanted to meet the man who's made my daughter happy." David always said Emma would find someone special, someone who understood her heart. I'm glad he was right. After lunch, as they walked Janet back to her hotel, Emma said, "You talked to Dad about me." Janet looked uncomfortable. "We kept in touch. Not often, but sometimes. He loved you so much, Emma. He never stopped believing in you, even when I gave up on myself." Emma did not know what to say to that. The relationship with her mother would always be complicated, marked by abandonment and hurt. But maybe there was room for some healing too. After Janet left for Arizona, Emma cried in Marcus's arms. "I don't know why it still hurts," she said. "She left so long ago, I should be over it." "You don't get over a parent leaving," Marcus said gently. "You just learn to live with it. And Emma, for what it's worth, I think she does love you. She's just broken in her own way." "My dad was never broken," Emma said. "Even after she left, even when it was hard being a single parent, he never gave up. He was always there." "That's the kind of parent you'll be someday," Marcus said. "When we have kids, you'll be there for them the way your dad was there for you." Emma pulled back to look at him. "You think about us having kids," Marcus smiled. "All the time. I think about our future constantly, Emma. I think about marriage and children and growing old together. I think about Sunday mornings at the diner with our kids, starting the tradition all over again." Emma kissed him, overwhelmed with love. "I think about those things too." The 1-year anniversary of the day they met approached, and Emma planned something special. She coordinated with the diner staff, and on that Sunday morning, when Marcus arrived at their usual booth, he found it decorated with photographs. Pictures of them together over the past year, interspersed with pictures of Emma and her father from years ago. "What's all this?" Marcus asked, his voice thick with emotion. "This is our story," Emma said. "A year ago today, I walked into this diner crying into my eggs, missing my dad and feeling lost, and you sat down and changed my life. I wanted to celebrate that." Marcus pulled her close, kissing her forehead. "You changed my life too. Before you, I was just going through the motions, doing what was expected but not really living. You woke me up, Emma. You made me remember who I wanted to be." They spent the morning at the diner, looking at photographs and reminiscing. The waitress brought them a special breakfast she had prepared, chocolate chip pancakes shaped like hearts with strawberry jam smiles. "This is from all of us," she said. "We've loved watching your love story unfold in our little diner." After breakfast, Marcus drove Emma to their little house. They had finished most of the renovations, and it had become their weekend retreat, a place to escape the demands of the city and just be together. Inside, Marcus turned to Emma with nervous energy. "I have something for you, an anniversary gift." He handed her an envelope, and inside was a deed. Emma's eyes widened as she read it. "You're putting the house in both our names." "I want it to be ours," Marcus said. "Not mine, not yours, ours. a symbol of the life we're building together. He took a breath. Emma Morrison, I know we've only been together for a year. Some people would say that's not long enough to be sure, but I've never been more certain of anything in my life. I love you. I want to marry you, have children with you, grow old with you. Will you marry me? He pulled out a ring box, opening it to reveal a beautiful emerald-cut diamond. Emma's hands flew to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Yes, she managed to say. Yes, Marcus, of course yes. He slid the ring onto her finger, and they kissed surrounded by the walls they had painted together, in the house that represented their future. It was perfect. They got married 6 months later in a simple ceremony at the theater, which had just completed its renovation. The space was stunning, restored to its original grandeur, and it was filled with people they loved. Marcus's mother was there, beaming with happiness. His father had declined to attend, still disapproving of the match, but Marcus refused to let that diminish his joy. Emma wore a simple white dress, and she carried wildflowers like the ones Marcus had brought her on their first date. Her mother came from Arizona, and while their relationship was still healing, Janet cried happy tears as Emma walked down the aisle. I wish Dad was here, Emma had said to Marcus the night before the wedding. He is here, Marcus had assured her. He's in this theater that exists because you inspired me. He's in the foundation that carries his name. He's in the love we have for each other. Your dad is everywhere, Emma. The ceremony was officiated by a friend, and when they exchanged vows, there was not a dry eye in the house. Emma, Marcus said, holding her hands. You found me when I was lost, reminded me of who I wanted to be. You showed me that real wealth isn't measured in bank accounts but in love and purpose and Sunday morning traditions. I promise to honor your father's memory by being the kind of man who chooses meaning over profit, love over expectation. I promise to meet you at the diner every Sunday for as long as we both shall live. I promise to love you fiercely and completely, today and always. Emma's vows were equally heartfelt. Marcus, you came into my life during my darkest moment and brought light. You saw me at my worst and chose to stay. You've honored my father's memory in ways I could never have imagined, and you've shown me that it's possible to build a beautiful future while cherishing the past. I promise to be your partner in all things, to support your dreams, to build traditions with you that we'll pass down to our children. I promise to love you with all that I am, today and forever. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, the theater erupted in applause. They kissed as married partners for the first time, and Emma felt her father's presence as clearly as if he had been standing beside her. The reception was held in the lobby of the theater, and it was a celebration of community and love. Students from the Music Foundation performed, playing pieces on instruments that had been donated in David Morrison's name. Emma danced with Marcus, her husband, while a student quartet played. Happy, Marcus murmured in her ear. Incredibly, Emma said, this is everything I ever wanted. They honeymooned in Italy, spending 2 weeks exploring Rome and Florence and Venice. They ate too much pasta, drank too much wine, and spent lazy mornings in bed talking about their future. They discussed how many children they wanted, 3, maybe 4, and what values they would instill in them. I want them to understand that money doesn't define worth, Marcus said as they walked through a market in Florence. I want them to have the kind of childhood you had, full of love and music and traditions. They'll have the best of both worlds, Emma said, your opportunities and my values. Our values, Marcus corrected. We're a team now. When they returned home, married life settled into a comfortable rhythm. They kept their Sunday morning tradition at the diner, now arriving together instead of meeting there. They worked on the music foundation together, visiting schools and seeing the direct impact their work was having. They spent weekends at their little house near the diner, gradually filling it with memories and love. 6 months after the wedding, Emma found out she was pregnant. She told Marcus at the diner, of course, sliding a photograph across the table during breakfast. It took him a moment to understand what he was looking at, then his eyes widened. "Is that?" "We're having a baby," Emma confirmed, grinning through happy tears. Marcus came around to her side of the booth and pulled her into his arms, not caring that they were in public, not caring about anything except the miracle of new life they had created together. "We're having a baby," he repeated, wonderstruck. "Emma, we're going to be parents." The pregnancy was smooth, and Marcus was attentive and excited throughout. He talked to Emma's growing belly, read parenting books, and prepared the nursery in their city apartment with meticulous care. They chose not to find out the sex, wanting to be surprised. Emma worked at the rehabilitation center until a month before her due date, then reluctantly took leave. She loved her work, but she was excited for this new chapter, excited to become a mother. Their daughter was born on a Sunday morning, which felt appropriate. They named her Grace Ann Chen, Grace for the grace that had brought Marcus and Emma together, and Ann after Emma's middle name. Holding his daughter for the first time, Marcus wept openly. "She's perfect," he said. "Emma, she's absolutely perfect." "She has your nose," Emma said, exhausted but happy. "And your eyes," Marcus said. "Look at her, Emma. We made this incredible person." Grace was a good baby, and they settled into parenthood with the same teamwork they brought to everything. Marcus took paternity leave from the company, wanting to be present for these early weeks. They survived on little sleep and lots of love, marveling at every tiny sound and expression their daughter made. When Grace was 2 months old, they brought her to the diner for the first time. The waitress, who had been serving them for nearly 2 years now, cooed over the baby. "Your tradition continues," she said, smiling. "Now there are 3 of you." Marcus and Emma sat in their usual booth, Grace sleeping peacefully in her carrier between them. They ordered their regular breakfasts and talked quietly, amazed by how much their lives had changed. "Do you remember that first morning?" Emma asked. "When you sat down and I was crying into my eggs? I remember thinking you were the most beautiful sad person I'd ever seen," Marcus said. "And I remember feeling this pull to help you somehow, to make you smile. You did make me smile. You've been making me smile ever since." "Your dad would be so proud of you," Marcus said, looking at Grace. "He'd be over the moon about becoming a grandfather." Emma felt the familiar pang of loss, but it was softened now by joy. "I talk to her about him. I tell her stories about her grandpa, the piano teacher who believed music could change the world. We'll make sure she knows him," Marcus promised. "Through our stories, through the foundation, through the traditions we keep, he'll be part of her life." Marcus's father eventually came around, slowly and grudgingly at first. The birth of his granddaughter softened something in him, and he began to show up for family dinners, to make an effort with Emma. It would never be an easy relationship, but they found a way to coexist peacefully. "I may have been wrong about you," Robert told Emma one evening when Grace was 6 months old. They were at the Chen family home for dinner, and Robert had offered to hold the baby while Emma ate. "May have been?" Emma asked with a small smile. Robert actually chuckled. "All right, I was wrong. You're good for Marcus. You've made him happy in a way I haven't seen since he was a child." and you've given me this beautiful granddaughter." It was not exactly an apology, but Emma accepted it as the olive branch it was meant to be. Grace's first birthday was celebrated at the theater, surrounded by family and friends and members of the community they had built together. The Music Foundation was thriving, having expanded to 12 schools across the state. The theater hosted regular performances and workshops, exactly as Marcus had envisioned. Emma had returned to work part-time at the rehabilitation center, loving her patients, but also loving her time at home with Grace. Marcus had restructured his role at the company, delegating more responsibilities so he could focus on the foundation and his family. He had also started teaching a free architecture class at the theater on Saturday mornings, finally fulfilling his dream of being an educator. "I've been thinking," Marcus said one Sunday morning at the diner. Grace was in a high chair, making a mess of her pancakes, and Emma was pregnant again, just beginning to show. "Dangerous," Emma teased. Marcus grinned. "I want to write a book about the theater restoration. Not a technical manual, but a story about why historic preservation matters, about building spaces for community instead of profit. I want to dedicate it to your father and to all the teachers who inspire kids to dream bigger." Emma reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "I think that's a beautiful idea. And Dad would be honored." Their son was born 18 months after Grace, a healthy boy they named David Marcus Chen. Marcus cried again when Emma told him she wanted to name their son after her father. "Are you sure?" he asked. "That's such a meaningful name." "I'm sure," Emma said. "My dad would want his name to live on, and I can't think of a better way to honor him than to give his name to our son, to your son." David was a calm baby, easier in some ways than Grace had been. They adjusted to being parents of two, the exhaustion overwhelming but the joy even more so. Their apartment felt too small, so they bought a house with a yard and a separate music room that Marcus insisted on installing. "For piano lessons," he said when Emma questioned the expense. "Both kids are going to learn to play. It's a requirement." Emma laughed. "Pushy much?" "I'm determined," Marcus corrected. "There's a difference." Life became beautifully chaotic, filled with diapers and laughter and sleepless nights, and more love than Emma had thought possible. They maintained their Sunday morning tradition at the diner, though now it involved high chairs and spilled juice and crackers scattered across the table. The waitress, who they had learned was named Marie, always greeted them warmly and kept Cheerios on hand for the kids. "This booth has seen a lot of love," Marie told them one morning. "First heartbreak, then romance, now a family. It's my favorite story." When Grace was 3 and David was almost 2, they had a family portrait taken at the theater. They stood on the restored stage, Marcus and Emma with a child in each arm, smiling at the camera. Later, looking at the photo, Emma marveled at how far they had come from that first morning at the diner. "Can you believe this is our life?" she asked Marcus as they got ready for bed that night, both children finally asleep. "Sometimes I still can't," Marcus admitted, pulling her close. "I think about what my life would have been if I hadn't stopped at that diner that morning, if I hadn't seen you crying and decided to sit down. I'd probably still be going through the motions, focused only on profit margins and quarterly returns. Instead, you're a husband and father who runs a music foundation and teaches architecture to community college students," Emma said. "Not quite what your father had in mind." "No, but it's better than anything I could have imagined for myself." Marcus kissed her forehead. "You gave me this life, Emma. You and your dad and those Sunday morning traditions. You showed me what really matters." We showed each other, Emma corrected. You reminded me that love doesn't end with death, that traditions can evolve and include new people. You honored my father's memory in ways that let me keep him alive in my heart while still building a future. They stood there in the quiet of their bedroom, holding each other, grateful for every choice and circumstance that had brought them together. Years passed in that beautiful way they do when life is full and happy. Grace started kindergarten, excelling in music class in a way that made Emma's heart ache with pride and missing for her father. David proved to be shy but thoughtful, always watching and learning. Marcus wrote his book, which became a surprise bestseller and led to speaking engagements about community-focused development. Emma became director of her rehabilitation center, leading programs that helped hundreds of patients regain their independence. The Music Foundation expanded beyond their wildest dreams, operating in 40 schools across 3 states by the time Grace was 7. They hired a full staff to manage daily operations, but Marcus and Emma remained involved, visiting schools and meeting students. They established a scholarship program for students pursuing music education or music therapy, ensuring that David Morrison's legacy of belief in music's power would continue for generations. On the 5th anniversary of their wedding, Marcus and Emma returned to the theater for a special celebration. The space had become a beloved community landmark, hosting everything from school concerts to professional performances to weddings. That night, a student orchestra performed a piece composed specifically for the occasion, a beautiful melody that brought tears to Emma's eyes. "This is incredible," she whispered to Marcus as they listened. "Dad would have loved this so much." "He does love it," Marcus said. "Wherever he is, I'm sure he's proud of what we've built in his name." After the performance, they stood on the stage together, and Marcus addressed the crowd. "5 years ago, I married the love of my life in this theater. Emma taught me that true wealth isn't measured in money but in impact, in the lives we touch and the traditions we keep. She inspired this theater, this foundation, this community. And it all started because I walked into a diner and saw a woman crying into her eggs." The audience laughed, and Emma blushed as Marcus continued. "That woman told me about coming to that diner with her father, about Sunday morning traditions and the magic of music. And I knew, even then, that I wanted to be part of her story. I wanted to help her keep those traditions alive while building new ones together." He turned to Emma. "Thank you for letting me into your life, for making me a better man, for giving me our beautiful children. Thank you for every Sunday morning and every moment in between." Emma joined him at the microphone, tears streaming down her face. "When I lost my dad, I thought I had lost my foundation, the person who made me feel safe and loved and capable of anything. But then Marcus sat down at my booth and reminded me that love doesn't end. It transforms. It grows and evolves and makes room for new people and new traditions. My father's love lives on in our children, in the students who benefit from the foundation, in every person who walks through these theater doors. And it lives on in the man I married, who honors my past while building our future." They kissed while the audience applauded, and Grace and David, sitting in the front row with their grandmother Helen, clapped the loudest. Sunday mornings at the diner became even more special as the kids grew. Grace and David both loved the tradition, fighting over who got to sit by the window. They had their own favorite menu items now, and Marie always remembered what they liked. Sometimes Marcus's mother joined them, and she and Emma had developed a warm relationship over the years, bonding over their love for Marcus and the grandchildren. "You know what I love about this tradition," Grace said one morning when she was 9. "It makes me feel connected to Grandpa David even though I never met him." Emma's heart swelled. "He would have adored you, sweetheart. He would have taught you piano and told you ridiculous stories and been so proud of you." "Marcus tells me stories about him," David chimed in. He was 7 now, thoughtful and observant like his father. "He says Grandpa David believed everyone had music inside them." "He did believe that," Emma confirmed, "and you both have music inside you. I hear it when Grace plays piano and when David hums while he draws." After breakfast that day, they drove to the cemetery where Emma's father was buried. They had not been in a few months, and Emma wanted the kids to see the new headstone marker they had installed. It was simple but beautiful, with musical notes etched into the granite and the words "Teacher, Father, Believer in Magic." "Hi, Grandpa David," Grace said, placing flowers they had brought. "We went to the diner today. Mom had the scrambled eggs and Dad had the eggs over easy. I had chocolate chip pancakes because Mom says you always thought everyone comes back to the pancakes eventually." Marcus put his arm around Emma as they watched their children talk to the grandfather they had never met but knew through stories and traditions. "You've kept him alive for them," he said quietly. "They know him through you." "Through us," Emma corrected. "You've honored his memory as much as I have, Marcus, maybe more because you didn't have to, you chose to." "Of course I did," Marcus said. "He gave me you. That makes him one of the most important people in my life, even though we never met." On their 10th wedding anniversary, Marcus surprised Emma with a renewal of vows. He arranged it at the diner, coordinating with Marie and the staff to close the restaurant for a private event. When Emma arrived for their usual Sunday morning breakfast, she found the diner transformed with flowers and candles, their closest family and friends waiting inside. "What is this?" Emma asked, overwhelmed. "10 years ago, you told a stranger at this diner about coming here with your dad," Marcus said, taking her hands. "That stranger became your new tradition." "But Emma, you're not just my tradition. You're my everything. You're my heart, my home, my reason for being better. I want to renew our vows here where it all began." They stood in the same booth where they had first met, surrounded by the people they loved most, and renewed their commitment to each other. Grace and David held the rings, beaming with pride. Helen cried happy tears. Even Robert, who had fully embraced Emma by this point, looked emotional. "Emma Morrison Chen," Marcus said, "I promise to meet you at this diner every Sunday for the rest of our lives. I promise to honor your father's memory by living with purpose and passion. I promise to be a present father, a devoted husband, and a man worthy of your love. I promise to keep building traditions with you, to fill our life with music and meaning. I promise to love you fiercely and completely today and always." Emma's vows were just as heartfelt. "Marcus Chen, you gave me back my joy when I thought I had lost it forever. You honored my past while building our future. You've been the most incredible husband and father, showing our children what real love looks like. I promise to continue this beautiful life with you, to support your dreams, to meet you at this diner every Sunday until we're old and gray. I promise to love you with all that I am, today and forever." They sealed their renewed vows with a kiss, and the diner erupted in applause. Marie brought out a special breakfast she had prepared, and they celebrated with pancakes and eggs and endless coffee, just as Emma and her father had done so many years ago. As the morning wore on and their guests mingled, Marcus pulled Emma aside. "There's one more thing," he said, leading her to their booth. "Look under your seat." Emma reached under and found an envelope. Inside was a deed to the diner. "You bought the diner," Emma gasped. "Marie's been wanting to retire," Marcus explained. "And I couldn't let this place become something else. Not when it means so much to us. I thought we could run it together. Keep it exactly as it is. Make sure it's here for Grace and David to bring their families to someday." Emma threw her arms around him, laughing and crying at the same time. "You bought the diner where we met. That's the most romantic thing you've ever done, and you've done some pretty romantic things." "It's where our story began," Marcus said simply. "I want to make sure it's where our story continues for as long as possible." They took over the diner, keeping Marie on as a consultant and the staff who had been there for years. Emma worked there on weekends, loving the rhythm of serving breakfast and hearing customers' stories. Marcus would come in with the kids, and they'd help bus tables and refill coffee. It became another tradition, another thread in the tapestry of their life together. The music foundation continued to grow and thrive. On the 10th anniversary of its founding, they held a massive concert at the theater featuring students from all the schools they supported. Hundreds of young musicians performed, playing instruments provided by the foundation, wearing proud smiles and nervous energy. Emma sat in the audience holding Marcus's hand, Grace on her other side and David leaning against his father, and she felt her father's presence so strongly it was almost tangible. "Look what we built," Marcus whispered to her. "Look at all these kids making music because your dad believed in it, because you inspired me to honor that belief." "We built it together," Emma said. "All of this, everything good in our lives, we built together." Years continued to pass in that rich, full way. Grace became an accomplished pianist, eventually deciding to study music education in college. "I want to be like Grandpa David," she told her parents. "I want to teach kids that they can do anything." David pursued architecture, inspired by his father's work and his love of creating beautiful spaces. "I want to design buildings that bring communities together," he said. Like Dad did with the theater. Emma and Marcus watched their children grow into remarkable adults, proud of the values they had instilled and the traditions they had passed down. They still went to the diner every Sunday, even after the kids left for college. It was their time, sacred and unshakable, a tradition that had sustained them through joy and challenge alike. On the 20th anniversary of the day they met, Marcus and Emma sat in their booth at the diner, which they still owned and operated on weekends. They were older now, gray threading through their hair, laugh lines etched around their eyes. But their love was as strong as ever, deepened by 2 decades of life lived together. 20 years, Emma marveled. "Remember when you sat down that first morning and I was crying into my eggs?" "I remember thinking I had to help you somehow," Marcus said. "I remember feeling this pull, like the universe was telling me you were important." "The universe was right," Emma said. "You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Marcus Chen. You and our children and this life we've built together. You took my grief and helped me transform it into something beautiful." "We transformed it," Marcus corrected. "You, me, and your dad's memory. He's been part of this journey the whole time." Emma looked around the diner, at the photographs on the walls documenting their 20-year love story, at the customers who had become like family, at the life they had built from a chance encounter and a shared moment of kindness. "I used to come here with my dad," she said softly, echoing the words she had spoken to Marcus 2 decades ago. "Now I come here with you and our children." The tradition evolved, but the love behind it never changed. Marcus raised his coffee cup. "To David Morrison for teaching his daughter about traditions and the power of music." and to 20 more years of Sunday mornings, of love, of building a life worth living. Emma clinked her cup against his. To us, to our family, to the stranger who became my everything. I love you, Marcus. I love you, Emma. Today, tomorrow, always. They kissed across the table in their booth, in the diner where everything began, surrounded by 20 years of memories and a future still full of promise. The waitress, a young woman they had hired and trained, brought them fresh coffee and smiled at the sight of them, still so obviously in love after all these years. Outside, Sunday morning traffic moved along the highway. Inside, Emma and Marcus sat together in their booth, keeping a tradition alive, honoring the past while building the future. Proof that sometimes the most extraordinary love stories begin with the simplest acts of kindness, with a stranger sitting down and asking if you're okay, with Sunday mornings at a diner, with choosing love over and over again. Their story, which had begun in grief and chance, had blossomed into a life rich with purpose and joy. The millionaire who stopped at a diner had become so much more than a new tradition. He had become home, partner, father to their children, keeper of memories and builder of dreams. And the woman who had cried into her eggs had found that love doesn't end with loss. It transforms, expands, and makes room for new chapters while honoring the old ones. 20 years after that first Sunday morning, Emma and Marcus Chen sat in their booth, holding hands, drinking coffee, living proof that the best traditions are the ones we choose to keep, the ones we build together, the ones rooted in love that spans across time, connecting past to present to future in an unbroken chain of Sunday mornings and scrambled eggs, and the quiet magic of two people who chose each other, again and again and again.